All the characters in the story are over 18 years old. My sister Amber and I are in high school, and for most of our lives, our father distracted us from nonsense with the help of WWE, World Wrestling Entertainment. Growing up, Amber became very attractive, but she still liked to fool around with me, despite the fact that our parents no longer consider it cute. I'm telling you all this because wrestling directly led to my first love experience in my life, when my older sister Amber challenged me to a wrestling match. It was a Saturday afternoon, and I was watching a wrestling program alone at home. My friend Sam would have watched with me, but he was in bed with an illness for a week. I was throwing one of the sofa cushions and shouting at the set when my sister Amber came into the room. As I mentioned above, Amber is a very attractive teenage girl. She has a very beautiful face and a smile, with a scattering of freckles on her cheeks. Amber was of slim build. "Mike, what are you doing, silly?" she asked. "I fight and defeat the evil professor, Toru Tanaka," I replied, laying my head on a helpless pillow. "Yeah, that's right," Amber said with a laugh. "You couldn't beat me even if you tried." She stood with her hands on her hips and looked at me. "I sure could," I said, looking back at her. "I know wrestling techniques and moves that you don't know anything about. I could have easily taunted you," I replied in a confident tone. "But I'm a year older and stronger," Amber said. "But skill can defeat strength," I said. "Just look at how Bruno defeated the Haystacks." "I'll tell you what, I'll take your challenge, but let's make it interesting. The loser washes the dishes and takes out the trash for 2 weeks," Amber said. "Okay," I replied. "It's a bet. When do you want to do this?" "Right now," Amber said with a laugh. "Mom is at work until 6, and Dad has gone to play golf. Let's do it in the living room. We can pull back the sofa to make some room. I think we should put on our swimsuits, and I want to braid my hair first." So I went downstairs and cleared the place, as Amber suggested, and then changed my clothes. I was pleased and surprised when Amber suggested that we wear swimsuits before the match. I was the first to return when Amber appeared, dressed in a pink one-piece suit. Her long hair was braided and hung down to half of her back. We agreed on the basic rules and set the kitchen timer for 3 minutes, and when I shouted, "Go ahead," Amber rushed at me. I stepped aside and dodged her, and then rushed at her from above. We were on our knees facing each other, both of us slightly out of breath. Amber twisted to the side. I missed and felt her throw herself on my back. I turned a little to the side. We stared at each other again, breathing heavily, and I saw the mischievous gleam in Amber's eyes. 1, 2. Amber counted as I struggled wildly and lifted my shoulder off the floor. The alarm clock rang, indicating that the round was over, and I let her go. We were both sitting on the floor, breathing heavily, glancing at each other from time to time. After a 2-minute rest, I set the clock to 3 minutes, and we looked at each other when Amber shouted, "Go ahead." Amber was bigger and had stronger legs than me, but I was faster. Amber thrashed around before finally breaking free. The alarm went off, and I think I got the upper hand in the second round. I turned the hands of the clock, and the last round began, when we attacked each other more like samurai warriors than like brother and sister. The match continued. I broke the lock on her leg, walked around and laid her on her stomach. 1, 2, Amber said, and I realized she was still trying to pin me down when I lifted my shoulder off the ground. Okay, I thought, resisting, but not too much. I closed my eyes for a moment, and Amber pressed my shoulders to the floor and counted 1, 2, 3. "It looks like I beat you," she said with a smile. Without warning, she let go of me, stood up and looked down at me. "I demand a rematch," I said. "We'll see," she said, and walked away without looking back at me. For the next few days, nothing seemed to happen between us. We ate at breakfast and laughed while everyone was watching TV, an ordinary life. The following Saturday was exactly a week since we fought. I was riding my bike home after I finished my route, and I was wondering if Amber and I would fight again. I parked my bike in the garage and saw that Dad's golf clubs were missing. That meant he was playing at the Lakewood Country Club, and Mom was in the middle of a shift at the hospital, so no one was supposed to be home. No one, I think, except Amber. So I went into the house and looked for Amber, and she was watching TV. "Hi, sis," I said. "Are you ready for this rematch?" She looked at me longingly for a moment before saying, Let me change my clothes. I'll meet you in the living room. I ran to my room, grabbed the kitchen timer, and prepared the family room, and a minute later Amber appeared. She was wearing the same pink suit as last time. I set the timer, and we carefully walked around each other. I rushed at her, and she danced away from me easily. I tried again, but she grabbed my arm and, taking advantage of my inertia, threw me to the floor, where she grabbed my head in a grip. We were both breathing heavily, and I took a sip of water and turned the hands of the clock for another 3 minutes. We started again, and I was able to stand behind her and put a hammerlock on her. She struggled and kicked, but I held her for more than 30 seconds before she was able to break free. We grappled and rolled over again, and she pinched my left arm. My right arm was behind my head, and she was pulling at my arms. I wriggled and struggled, but I couldn't get free. We were both breathing heavily, and I really couldn't get away. She shouted down to me, "The third and final match will take place next week," and then went to her bedroom. As before, the week passed as usual: school, cutting grass, and playing with my friends. But the thought of our upcoming match never left me. Saturday finally arrived as I was cycling home after my flight. I was hoping I could do it too. As in the previous 2 weeks, our parents were not at home, and the house was empty. I looked out the window and saw Amber lying on a blanket on the grass. The radio was playing there. An evil thought flashed through my mind as I headed downstairs to where Amber was lying. "Hi, Amber," I said with a smile. "Is it time for our rematch?" She pretended not to hear me. Amber looked up at me, squinted, shielding her eyes from the sun, and said, "I'll give you a rematch, Mike." "Cool," I said. "Let me start the timer." I was about to leave, but then she said, "For our decisive match, how about we don't limit ourselves in time and do whatever we want?" Amber suggested. "It looks like you're ready," she said, getting up, winding her watch and climbing onto the blanket. Whether she's a sister or not, she looked damn beautiful. I reached out and Amber grabbed my arm, knocked me to the ground, and landed on top of me. I took a step towards her, and she recoiled. Then she feinted at me and I dodged back. Then she paused and said, "It's all or nothing, Mike," she whispered. "Now go ahead," she shouted. After a long struggle, something went wrong. We got too carried away with this game. We couldn't hold back our emotions any longer and made love. "It looks like I beat you this time," I said. "Yes, but I wonder if you're ready for another round, my well-built little brother?" "Sure, let's do the same thing tomorrow," I replied. "No one else knows our secret. Parents don't even know what we're doing after the fight." End.